Corruption, especially between the media and politicians, eats away at the heart of democracy. When politicians target journalists, it is a grave abuse of power which should, and does, strike fear into people's hearts. Yes, there are some people around who understand that a journalist giving a government a hard time is not the same thing as a government giving a journalist a hard time. The first is democracy. The second is abuse, harassment, and intimidation. Setting a journalist up as a figure of hate is deliberate. It is done to undermine their message, enabling corrupt politicians to warp the perception of what they write and report about them. They talk about media freedom, and then they have an entire machine harassing a journalist who is their most outspoken critic. This signals to anybody outside the country that certain basic concepts of journalism, free speech, and the different roles of politicians and journalists in a democratic society are simply not understood. You want reassurance that it is not you who is in the wrong, because you think people who do serious wrong should not be in government. No, you are not wrong because you think the police should act. No, you are not wrong to feel sick when the mob cheers a corrupt police officer. Of course you are not wrong. You are right. You would be surprised that the forces of darkness and corruption think themselves the decent ones, despite their necessarily intimate knowledge of what they themselves do. This self-delusion is a coping mechanism, nothing fancier than that. And part of that coping mechanism is using the media machines and other means at its disposal to go after their critics by portraying them as bad and evil, as enemies of the people who wish to harm the heroes of public largesse. We, who work in the independent media, need to remember at times of great crisis like this, and make no mistake, this is a crisis, that we are all on the same side, and that corrupt politicians are on the other side. It is our job and our duty to go after them, and not after each other. The crux of the issue is that when a political party launches and maintains a sustained assault on a lone journalist who it sees as a threat, it is not an attack on an individual. It is an attack on press freedom generally. It is meant to eliminate that particular threat and to discourage others. But the only response that sort of repulsive behavior should meet with, in a true democracy, is of resistance and general opposition. I know that what I am writing will not make a difference, but I have to write it. Because someone has to. We have to document what is happening. Rather than giving in to anger or disillusionment, it is better and more consoling to know that we have done our best to avert the triumph of the undeserving, in which those who have served the country ill are rewarded, while those who have served it well are punished. On the matter of basic civil liberties, respect for the rights of the individual, tolerance of criticism and press freedom, I have for the last 26 years been the canary in the coal mine. For years I have been the target of sustained assaults, and not just me, but also my sons and other members of my family, across all the media, print, broadcast and the internet, official and unofficial. The fascist totalitarian targeting has been so ghastly there is not a single person left on the island who doesn't know my name, even if they can't spell or pronounce it. Even if they can't read Maltese, let alone English, and so have never read a single thing I have written. They don't know what I write, but they know they should hate me and insult me. I have been doing this for so long that my sons, now all aged 30 or thereabouts, know nothing else. One of them was in nappies when I started writing a newspaper column, the other two in kindergarten. They grew up thinking it was completely normal to have your mother's name all over the newspapers and on the tip of politicians' tongues, to have your house set on fire, to have police at your gate either to guard your mother or to arrest her, to have your mother check the underside of the car for bombs before taking you to school, to answer the home telephone to find some anonymous nutjob spouting obscenities at you when you're only 8 years old, to find parcels of human excrement in the post, to see your mother ripped to shreds on television, portrayed as a witch in newspapers and gossiped about endlessly and viciously by people you know and their parents on Facebook. But as long as I was singled out for assault, no other journalists bothered. It was as though Hitler's men had come along and carted off a lone Jew, and the other Jews said to themselves, well, it must be because she committed some crime or because she always says the wrong thing and deserves it. And of course, it's not because Hitler and his men are in any way virulently anti-Semitic, so it's never going to be a problem for the rest of us. Yes, that is exactly why I'm concerned about the quiet people. In my view, the silent ones in any scenario are those planning to knife you. I'll say this to my fellow journalists, by which I do not mean the employees of any political party. The worst thing you can do when you see another journalist under assault by the government or the opposition is to sink your head below the parapet, hoping the same thing will not happen to you, or take malicious pleasure in the spectacle. As we are seeing now, a political party prepared to attack one journalist to achieve its own ends will think nothing of doing the same to others when they become inconvenient too. The solution is not to avoid becoming inconvenient, for then what kind of journalist will you be? But to fight back. I've lost count of the number of times people have told me I shouldn't bother, that I should stop writing because it's doing me no good, that I have only one life, etc., etc. I can see they mean well, but unlike those sorts of people, I'm not prone to nihilism. And I don't like wasting my time playing bridge or tennis, or marking the days out in cups of coffee with friends. Besides which, it will be the coward's way out. This website is here to inform, to entertain, and to serve the democratic purpose enshrined in human rights law of freedom of speech. Failure to understand freedom of speech is one of the most obvious signs of a backward society. What is the point of having freedom of speech if you can't use it to say that the people who govern you are crooks? There is corruption everywhere in the world, literally everywhere, and at every level. The difference is that in Malta, people have a corrupt attitude towards corruption. They blank it. They tolerate it. The powers are not really separate. Institutions are weak. The police operate as an extension of the government. Judges and magistrates are politically appointed. It's a dreadful situation, ripe and designed for abuse and corruption. There seems to be no end to it. Politicians on both sides of the House never talk about this terrible problem. When was the last time any politician mentioned it, if at all? And the police appear to be grappling with just the tip of it. I fear it may be one of the worst sources of corruption, because as organized crime grows, it draws into its network key people in the separate powers of the state. It is the only way organized crime can grow and survive beyond a certain level. By the look of things, it has more than surpassed that level already. Malta is in a dangerous place, and now we can no longer say that it is corrupt politicians who have brought it to this point. For it can no longer be denied, those corrupt politicians are a reflection of society. The fight against corruption and the decimation of the rule of law must continue. Free speech is ultimately the basis of our democracy, which we should never be afraid to protect for ourselves and for each other. There is something else I should say before I go. When people taunt you or criticize you for being negative, or for failing to go with their flow, for not adopting an attitude of benign tolerance to their excesses, bear in mind always that they, and not you, are the ones who are in the wrong. Irrid ngħid ħaġa oħra qabel ma mmur. Meta n-nies jippersegwitawk jew jikkritikawk għax qed tkun negattiv, jew għax ma tinġarx mal-folla, tal-li ma adottajtx attitudni ta' tolleranza ħanina lejn l-eċċessi tagħhom. Żommu dejjem f'moħħkom illi huma u mhux intom qegħdin fit-tort. And let this be a lesson to the lot of us. Know your rights. Know your civil liberties. Know what the fundamental principles of democratic thinking and behavior are. And never give in to authority just because it is authority. That is the thinking which feeds and enables totalitarianism. Din għandha tkun lezzjoni għalina l-koll. Kun naf id-drittijiet tiegħek. Kun naf il-libertajiet ċivili. Kun naf x'inhuma l-prinċipji ta' ħsieb u nġiba demokratika. U qatt iċċedi għall-awtorità sempliċiment għax hija awtorità. Dak il-mod ta' raġunament innissel it-totalitarjanizmu. If a law is in itself illegal, if it violates fundamental principles of human rights and liberties, then you are not obliged to obey it. On the contrary, it is your duty not to do so. Jekk hemm liġi li hija illegali, jekk tivjolenta l-prinċipji fundamentali tad-drittijiet u l-libertajiet tal-bniedem, m'intix obbligat tobdiha. Al kontrarju, huwa dover tiegħek li ma tobdihiex. It's true that life is unfair and that much of it can't be helped. But where I can do anything to avoid unfairness or to set it straight, then I will. I cannot bear the thought of injustice, still less the reality of it. Others have been there before me, in situations which require far more bravery and moral courage than has been required of me over the years in Malta. Others are there still, in horrendous situations, as they are in Baku in Azerbaijan. What I am put through is as nothing compared to the hellish nightmare those brave people must endure in their far more dangerous battles. It is the nature of my personality to think in terms of, do your worst, you bastards, until the only option left to you is to take out a contract on my life. They would gladly see me dead, which appears to be the only way I will shut up.